I never craved their validation. At least, that's what I told myself as I stood in my corner office, gazing out over the Seattle skyline, the gentle buzz of the city filtering through the glass walls. An email pulsed on my screen. It was from my younger sister. Dad lost his job. Mom's medical bills are drowning us. I know you've got your own expenses, but if you can help at all. A laugh slipped out of me, brittle and humorless. If only they knew. 12 years ago, when I was just 16, I stood in the cramped living room of our townhouse in Tucson, Arizona. My acceptance letter to the Rhode Island School of Design sat on the coffee table, and my father's face was thundercloud dark. Alted art? That's not a real career, Nadia. He waved the letter like it was infected. You're going to waste your life chasing nonsense. Grow up. My mother hovered near the window, silent and faded. She rarely spoke up when he exploded, instead folding into herself, leaving me alone to weather the storm. I've got a partial scholarship, I murmured, and I've saved from tutoring and summer jobs. It's enough. No, you're going into engineering like your sister. End of discussion. But for the first time, it wasn't. No. That single word cracked something open in both of us. His face flushed, fists clenched at his sides. Then get out? Think you're so independent? Prove it. Just don't come crawling back. That night, I crammed thrift store clothes into an old duffel bag. My sister Maria stood in the hallway, wide-eyed. You're serious? Have to be. I can't keep living a life that isn't mine. As I zipped up my bag, Mom slipped in quietly. She didn't say much. She never did. But she pressed a small object into my palm, a faded velvet pouch. Your Aunt Sophia wanted you to have this when the time was right. I think that time's now. Inside was a delicate silver pendant and a tiny folded note, taped to a small brass key. A safety deposit box. I read the letter later that night, holed up in a cheap motel outside Phoenix. Nadia, if you're reading this, you've taken the first step toward becoming who you were born to be. I'm proud of you already. And in that moment, I knew I'd never return. Not to beg, not to justify, only to build. Always knew you would. That was the first line of Aunt Sophia's second letter. The key unlocks box 132 at Puget Sound Credit Union. Open it when you're ready. Inside, you'll find what you need to begin. And remember, true art isn't just about creating beauty. It's about finding value where others see nothing. With all my love, Aunt Sophia. The next morning, I stepped into Puget Sound Credit Union, my fingers trembling as I handed over my ID. The safety deposit box wasn't large, but what lay inside seemed impossibly vast. A few pieces of antique silver jewelry, stacks of neatly bound documents, and a letter, addressed to me in Sophia's looping script. The note unraveled a secret. Aunt Sophia hadn't just been a hobbyist who collected pretty trinkets. She'd been a serious antique dealer in the 1940s, quietly building a hidden legacy. The silver pieces? They weren't cheap souvenirs. They were genuine Art Nouveau and early Art Deco designs, rare and exquisite. And they'd been carefully passed down, one quiet generation after another. Take these to Marco DeLuca at Rain City Antiques. He'll know their true worth. My knees nearly gave out when Marco finished his appraisal. The pieces in the box were valued at over $430,000. 0 cents. But that number wasn't the most life-changing part. Marco tilted his head and studied me. You have the eye for detail most people never develop. Ever thought of learning the trade? That was the spark. Marco took me under his wing, teaching me everything. How to authenticate metals and stones, how to read provenance documents, how to negotiate in hushed tones at auctions, and how to spot hidden treasures buried in dusty estate sales. I was hooked. By 19, I'd launched a small online store for vintage jewelry. By 23, I opened my first brick-and-mortar boutique in Capitol Hill. Now at 26, I own a chain of private antique galleries across the West Coast with a personal net worth of over $14,600,000, 0 cents. And not a single headline printed my name. My family still believed I worked odd retail jobs or rented a tiny studio apartment somewhere in Spokane. I preferred it that way. Low profile, quiet growth. Until that email from Maria. Dad's job is gone. Mom's drowning in hospital bills. Could you help? Even just a little? I stared at the message, then picked up my phone. Hey Maria, bring Mom and Dad to my office tomorrow. Your office? Like the consignment shop you used to help out at? No, my real office. Rainier Tower, I'll text the address. Maria laughed uncertainly. We'll see. Rainier Tower, you can't just walk in there pretending. I smiled, glancing at the sweeping city views outside my windows. I bought Rainier Tower outright last spring. Trust me, Maria. They'll let me in. Just be there. 9 a.m. And Maria, tell Mom and Dad to bring every page of their mortgage paperwork. Absolutito infacile. The next morning, I stood at the window of my office, top floor of Rainier Tower, watching as my family's weathered blue SUV pulled into the private entrance below. Even 30 stories up, I could sense the uncertainty in their movements as a uniformed security guard stepped forward, guiding them past the main lobby to the executive elevator reserved for only a handful of occupants. A gentle chime from the intercom broke my focus. Ms. Rousseau, your family has arrived, my assistant said. Send them in, I replied, my voice calm as I turned from the window to face the door. The moment they crossed the threshold, I saw the shock ripple through them. Dad froze in the center of the sleek office, eyes darting over the polished walnut floors and floor-to-ceiling windows, framing a sunlit Seattle skyline. Mom clung to the doorframe, her gaze sweeping across the space in stunned silence. Maria stood stiffly behind them, blinking rapidly, as if trying to erase the scene by sheer willpower. They'd come expecting a cramped consignment shop, a shared workspace at best, not a high-ceilinged gallery office hybrid adorned with rare Art Nouveau sculptures and glass cases showcasing antique silver and precious gems, not a custom-designed rosewood desk, once part of a Rockefeller estate, and certainly not this panoramic view of Seattle, sprawling beneath me like a quiet triumph. Nadia? Mom whispered, voice trembling. What is all this? I gave her a gentle smile. This is my office. Welcome to Rousseau Fine Art and Antiquities. My father's expression darkened, cycling from confusion to indignation to rage in seconds. No, he barked, stabbing a finger in my direction. You work retail? You live in a tiny apartment? He scoffed. I've seen you post pictures of cheap dinners and laundromats. I stepped closer to a glass case and tapped lightly on the surface, indicating a delicate Art Deco brooch I'd once purchased for just $700, 0 cents. Actually, I'm the CEO and founder of the largest private antique brokerage on the West Coast. Those posts? They were stage, carefully curated fiction. Maria's mouth fell open, but no words emerged. The Rainier Tower, she finally stammered. Belongs to me, I finished softly. Technically, the property was under the firm's name, but since I owned the firm, it was mine all the same. That's when Dad exploded. You kept this from us? We're your family? Secretly, What? I cut him off. Secretly succeeding, building something real, proving you wrong. I walked back to my desk, sat down and nodded toward the folder clutched in his hand. Now, let's talk about your mortgage. A heavy silence filled the room. Dad's anger evaporated into stunned quiet. Mom reached out, fingertips tracing the polished edge of my desk, searching for proof this wasn't some impossible dream. And if you think that conversation was intense, just wait until you hear what I told them next. Stay tuned. There's more to how I turned silence into power. Maria just stood there, lips parted, staring at the original Chihuly sculpture shimmering beside my espresso station. I opened my laptop, clicked into my business dashboard, and slowly pivoted the screen toward them. Since we're being truthful now, here's my current balance. $14,236,542, 0 cents. Mom let out a sharp gasp, her hand flying to her chest. Dad's fingers whitened around the arm of the sleek leather chair, Maria dropped the folder she'd been clutching like a lifeline, the same fancy leather portfolio she'd proudly shown off last Christmas after her big promotion. "This," I said calmly, sliding a thick file across the desk, "is why you're here. You're 3 months behind on your mortgage. Foreclosure proceedings have started." Maria blinked rapidly. "How? How do you know that?" I didn't flinch. "I own a controlling stake in Cascadia Trust, your mortgage lender. I know everything." I turned my gaze to Dad. "Your risky day trades, Mom's medical bills." Then to Maria. "And your condo flip in Capitol Hill, completely underwater." For a moment, the room was painfully silent, except for the quiet hum of the city outside. Finally, Dad's voice scraped its way out. "You knew we were drowning and said nothing? We're your family, Nadia." I rose slowly, placing both palms firmly on the cool surface of my rosewood desk. "Do you remember the night you told me to leave? Don't come crawling back when you fail." Those were your words. "We were trying to protect you," Dad protested, eyes narrowing in defensiveness. "No," I said, my voice calm but implacable. "You were trying to control me. That's not the same thing." I walked over to the vast window, the Seattle skyline blazing with sunlight, the Space Needle visible in the distance, a symbol of the empire I'd quietly built over the past decade. 10 years, I continued softly, no help, no faith, just me, my instincts, and the key Aunt Sophia gave me. Mom's eyes snapped up, confusion written across her face. "Sophia, what did she give you?" "Faith," I said, turning back toward them. "She believed in me when none of you did. She knew I'd build something real." I let my gaze sweep across their stunned faces. "Every holiday you mocked me. Still playing with antiques, Nadia? Come work as Maria's assistant, Nadia." Maria dropped her eyes to the floor. "But now," I continued, voice low and steady, "now that you've seen my bank balance, suddenly I'm worth your time again. Suddenly, I'm family." My father sat up straighter, slipping into his business tone. "We can talk about all this later. Right now we need to—" "Stop right there," I cut in, raising my hand, my voice cool as steel. "Before you say anything else, let me show you something." I pressed a discreet button on my desk. Behind me, the massive digital screen embedded in the wall flickered to life. One by one, file windows blossomed across the display. And what I revealed next changed everything, for them and for me. If you're as curious as they were, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next chapter of how secrets became my greatest power. Bank statements, property deeds, loan, defaults, investment records. "This," I said steadily, sweeping my hand toward the glowing screen, "is everything. Every loan, every debt, every bad decision. The total amount to wipe the slate clean and stabilize everything is exactly $2,400,000. 0 cents. 0 cents. My father's eyes flickered with something I hadn't seen in a decade. Hope. Maria's lips parted, caught between disbelief and relief. Mom reached out, brushing her fingers lightly over the back of my hand. I pulled away gently. "I've had that money set aside in a reserve account for years," I continued. "Every time the foreclosure letters came, every time things spiraled, I was watching, waiting." "Waiting for what?" Maria whispered. "To see if any of you would change, if you'd take responsibility. But you never did." I rose from my chair again, letting silence expand in the room until it pressed against the glass walls. "Instead, you borrowed more, mortgaged the house again, blamed bad luck." I crossed the room and sank back into my desk chair, sunlight glinting off the Chihuly sculpture behind me. "Here's what's going to happen," I said, my tone crisp. "I'll clear every debt, I'll save the house, and I'll set up a trust to keep all of you financially secure." Voices burst out in overlapping relief. I lifted my hand again, and the room fell silent. "But," I said firmly, "there are conditions." The air went still. "First," I said, meeting Dad's eyes, "you retire. No more stocks, no more crypto schemes, just rest. You've earned it, but you've cost us enough." His jaw clenched, eyes dropping. "Second," I turned to Maria, "you're dissolving the failing Capitol Hill condo project. Then you'll enroll in the music therapy program you once dreamed of, before real estate swallowed you. Maria's eyes widened, a single tear slipping free. She hadn't spoken of that dream in years. Third, I said softly to Mom, you're finally opening the bookstore near Green Lake. I'll fund it. Mom gasped, eyes shining. That dream had been shelved 3 decades ago to support Dad's ambitions. And finally, I said, looking at each of them, we're going to therapy weekly, together, because this isn't just about money anymore. Dad inhaled sharply, ready to protest, but Mom placed a gentle hand on his. We'll do it, she said softly. All of it. I nodded once and pressed the intercom button. Jasmine, bring in the contracts. These documents make everything official, I said, passing the thick folders across my desk. Take them home, read every line. They nodded, still rattled. Dad's hands trembled as he held the documents like they might disappear. As they turned to leave, I spoke once more, voice soft but unwavering. And Dad, that thing you said 10 years ago about me calling when I failed? He turned, his face tangled with guilt, pride, and regret. I never failed, I said quietly. I just succeeded without you. They left without another word, the silence trailing behind them like a shadow. I stood at the window, watching their SUV merge into Seattle traffic. Moments later, Jasmine stepped in and set a cup of chamomile tea on my desk. You okay? She asked gently. I paused, thinking of those lonely nights working until dawn, the empty holidays, the moments I doubted everything. Then I thought of this. Peace. Clarity. Yeah, I said finally, a small smile tugging at my lips. I think I finally am. The next morning, they returned with signed documents, tentative smiles, and the weight of a different future hanging between us. It didn't change everything overnight. Years of silence and wounds don't disappear with a signature, but it was a start. Dad, truly retired this time, apologized to me one quiet morning over coffee. I didn't cry, but his words cracked something open. Mom opened the Violet Finch bookshop in Fremont, a cozy place between a record store and a coffee roastery. Locals love it, so does she. Maria dissolved the condo project and enrolled in music therapy. Now she teaches at a community center in Ballard. Her laughter doesn't sound forced anymore. As for me, I kept building, but no longer in hiding. No more shrinking my wins. No more pretending to be small so others felt bigger. Because real power isn't proving people wrong, it's proving yourself right. On my desk sits Aunt Sophia's old jewelry box. Inside is the one piece I never sold. A simple gold locket, her photograph tucked inside. On the hard days, I open it and read her note again. True art isn't just about creating beauty. It's about recognizing worth where others see none. She was right, and the rarest treasure I ever discovered was my own worth. If my story resonates with you, drop a comment below. Tell me your aha moments. Share if you've ever had to walk away from those who didn't believe in you, or if you're still searching for your voice. This isn't just my story. It's for anyone who's been underestimated, dismissed, or quietly pushed aside. Let's connect. Let's build a community for builders, dreamers, the black sheep turned visionaries. I didn't share this for pity or praise. I shared it because we're often told to shrink ourselves to keep others comfortable, because ambition is labeled defiance instead of growth. My advice? Don't wait for permission to become who you're meant to be. Choose yourself, even when no one else does. For those still in the fight, keep going. The loneliness won't last forever. Your work matters. You matter. One day, when those who doubted you finally see what you've built, you won't need their validation. You'll already have your own. If you're ready to support stories like mine and others who've turned pain into power, hit that subscribe button. Let's keep telling stories that matter. And if you're harboring dreams you haven't spoken aloud yet, let this be your sign. You don't need their approval. You just need to start.